Welcome back, dear friends. Well, another lovely day in the workshop, and it's a very exciting day in the workshop today because last night I felt a little bit of a loose end. My mojo that regularly disappeared off somewhere since having got back from Whitby. It was so exciting coming back, and I hadn't got any major projects ready to get on with, and I have lots of stock left over and ready, so I don't need to make any more things. But then last night I got an order for another Climatic Revelator. How exciting is that? Oh, I'm full of the joys of spring again, highly motivated. So I thought I'd just keep you posted as to what I'm doing. I know I've made videos before on this, and I won't go into too much detail, but these videos are what I did in my workshop, so I might as well let you know. The first thing I did in my workshop, well actually the first thing was to go and look for all the bits that I need for the reciprocating chronometer, such as these gauges, these moving coil, yeah, People's Republic of China, very proud of that. Get them on eBay, I've mentioned them before, but they are absolutely perfect because they're round, they're sort of Victorian style. And later in the project I will yet again show you how you can convert one of these to run off an Arduino with a gauge of your choice and illumination of the highest quality. So that's nice. I have got one of those, but I've ordered a couple more just so I've got some in stock. So the second thing I'm going to do today is to start making the enclosure. And it is such a joy. I've said it numerous times. It is such a joy having these notes written out like this, because I've made two last year, I think, and I took the opportunity because these sides, in fact let me show you, here's the design of all the wooden parts, and these bits make up the panel. There's the front bit that holds the lens and other bits and pieces. So there's the design, and here's the real thing, which has just been laser cut and engraved. I've reset the cutting with this low density ply because it was actually the engraved slots and things for little engraved signs going right through, but that hasn't, so that's nice. And it's engraved lovely little twiddly bits on here. So I've got the sides of the panel and the front of the panel. There's the hole for the gauge and other bits and pieces, but obviously I need a way of fixing all these parts together. And the best way to do that is a shell structure, and the best way to do it, well the easiest way, is with little strips of 10mm wide bits of wood. That's what I'm cutting out at the moment. So I've got these done, and I mean, just before I take the dog for a walk, the exciting thing is I can then stick all the little bits on in the right place, like so. What a joy, what a dream. Doesn't get much better than this. And you know, last time I remember sticking them on starting right at the end and then realising, hang on, the end panel needs room to fit in. Made myself a little note, 3mm gap, constantly trying to get it right first time. So I'm going to do all that. So I've just cut out these so they're nice. Let's sit down and glue everything together. It's another day, slightly bleary-eyed. I don't know why, probably because I slept well. Once you have a good night's sleep, your body seems to say, right, let's have some more. But in other news, an interesting and exciting package arrived this very morrow. I only ordered it yesterday. As I think I mentioned in the past, I've stopped using RS in the UK because they were taken over by a new company. They used to guarantee delivery next day, and then the new company sort of changed it all sort of secretly, and suddenly I ordered last time some little magnets for micro reed switches, expecting them the next day as always, and because they said it was in stock and all this, and it took a week and a half for them to arrive, and there were some subtle changes in their conditions of service, so I've stopped using them, especially after I contacted customer services. And they said, oh no, they're not in stock, even though I looked them up. But anyway, you get the drift. So I use Farnell, no affiliation, excuse me. Ordered the stuff yesterday for the Climatic Revelator. Look what arrived. Stuff arrived. We have an Arduino Uno, a proper one, because I like to support the company or the business or whatever it is, Arduino, rather than getting some third-party copy. So that's nice. That came wrapped in a very large static-proof bag or whatever for some reason. We've got a lovely a PIR sensor. These are really great. I use these when I haven't got much room because they fit beautifully in a plumbing fitting, and they work really well. Just plus volts, 0 volts, and the output. Strangely enough though, having wrapped that, and I've never seen it before in anti-static packaging, this was just left sitting floating about in bubble wrap. Perhaps it's got anti-static proofing, I don't know, hopefully. And a power supply for the whole thing. It's the first time I've used one of these, and I thought, well, this will be fine, because it says, well, you can see here, 5 volts, 1.2 amps, which is the standard I use, USB connector. But then I noticed it said charger. Well, I must have noticed when I ordered it. It says charger all over it. Can anyone tell me what the difference is? I couldn't think of any differences. If it can provide 1.2 amps at 5 volts, it doesn't matter what you use that for, whether you're charging something or running something. I don't know. Please let me know in the comments, because I want to know whether I should use this, or whether perhaps as a charger it does something clever and that I don't want it to. Please let me know. So, glue's dried on these bits today. I can get them stained, and then sadly I've run out of the pre-cut plywood bases that I use as bases, 12mm thick birch ply, I think, for stability. I'd forgotten I'd run out of them, and that takes some time. I need to get them cut by the company or whatever, the suppliers, because I've got a very small bench saw, and it's just trying to work with 8 foot by 4 foot, for want of a better word, sheet is absolutely impossible for me to get it done accurately. So paying more but getting the right cuts is much easier. So I've got to wait for that. But the nice thing about these projects, all the bigger machines, is that they break down into little projects. Should we call them sub-projects? So today's sub-projects are to get the enclosure assembled. So that's nice. And I think we'll also work on that gauge and get that done. So 2 sub-projects. And other things we can do are obviously to work on the carousel itself that contains the 5 scenes. That's lovely. I can't wait to get on with that. By the way, for anyone who's interested in wanting to get hold of one of these little sensors, this is the AMN 11111. Catchy number. Apparently the 11111 refers to the type of mounting and the type of this and the type of that and the other. But they're very good, I can recommend them. And they're manufactured by Panasonic. They're very, very good. Stop saying that. This is one of the many features that make me consider that the software that comes with the laser cutter to run it was some sort of college project for someone who wasn't very good. Because with a laser cutter you have the settings, you have the speed and the power settings, and it would be really handy, really obvious, to have them being able to be named. You'd have a collection, so 3mm acrylic, 4mm 5, 10, 3mm ply, whatever. You'd have them, and you could just say, okay, here's a drawing, here's the colour, I want the red bits to be 3mm ply, or whatever. No, you don't, you can't. So I've just cut out these middle bits from 3mm acrylic, with the red being engraved screw heads and things, and then I've had to shove them out of the way and then import this, which is the top and bottom of the carousel, to save me having to re-enter the speed and powers for each of these colours, because it can only remember one speed colour thing. So if I deleted them, opened a new sheet, put it in, it would only remember one of those settings, and it would inevitably be the wrong one. Isn't that ludicrous? I mean, that's such a basic... Let's delete that, I can't see what I'm doing now. Go away, there we are. So I'm going to cut these 2 out. So what it's meant is, I've tried fiddling around, you know I'm pretty tenacious. When it comes to these things, I cannot find a way of tricking it. They really have gone out of their way, with all the specification files, or whatever you call application files, to make it absolutely impossible. You cannot trick it. I suppose I could have a list, a huge list across the top of it for every single thing, and then just, but it's a pain. So in the end, of course, as you know, I've had to go with my getting things out of the freezer that are dripping wet and sitting them onto something. Specification cutting list, hence the fact it's in this state. And I've just noted down everything, and as with this sort of thing, I think I actually started entering to a spreadsheet once as a sort of backup, but as you can see I just keep finding something else I want to cut and making a note of it. And here's a rather upset Ziggy because it's pouring with rain, and it's been raining since this morning all day, and she hates the rain. I've tried to get her outside, but she really isn't up for it, so I'm going to wait until this afternoon and hopefully it'll stop raining. Obviously she's smelt some little bit of molecule of cake or something that was dropped when we had the meal over Christmas. She's desperate to find it. It's amazing. She also has tenacity when it comes to food. She will not stop till she's found that molecule of deliciousness. Will you? No. So we've got the bits for the enclosure on the notes. We've got the notes for the carousel and the parts that we're cutting out, and we've got the notes for the gauge. I don't know why I just love these notes. I think it's because I took a little bit more trouble to make them look nice, sort of. We've got the gauge, so I'm going to start on that now, take it to pieces, get the guts that I need out and sort it all out, hopefully. I decided just to get all the engravings cut out in one go for all the different bits and pieces, so I would have the two pieces for the gauge. It's so enjoyable. It's just amazing, the quality, the precision of the laser engraving, especially, well, yeah, the engraving, the raster engraving. It's beautiful, it tells you. Here are the ends of the sides of the pulleys for the ball chain. Look. You don't need this bit, but I collect all these pieces. In fact, let me show you. In fact, yes, look, there's a box full of wondrous things, all sorts of offcuts and all these beautiful little bits and pieces. I've got another box of those. I think it's down there or something. What I've done in the past, because I can't bear to throw all this stuff away, is just to say, okay, if someone wants it, email me your address. I'll work out the postage, send me the postage, and I'll send it to you. Because there are 1,000 uses around the home and garden for all this stuff. So I have nearly got another box full. I'll get this packaged up and then I'll add something to one of my YouTube videos about it. So I can now get on with the gauge. What I've done is I've cut it down. It says here, cut the back off, because I haven't got much room actually. If you had more room inside the machine, you could just leave the whole lot on, but I haven't, so I've cut that down. And there's the moving coil meter part of it, with a magnet in the centre and a very, very fine coil of wire around the outside. That's, with this being a voltmeter, this is a shunt, is it? I can't remember what you call the resistor. But it slows down the voltage in effect, so that if this meter will actually be running on about 0.5 volt or less, if memory serves. So if it's going to be reading, well, this says 50 volts, then you need to have a resistor that knows, well, if you know the current that the meter draws, then you can work out the resistance of that to get it to read virtually any voltage. Although, because this is cheap and nasty, when I check this on my digital voltage supply, power supply, it's about 5 to 10 volts out, which isn't very helpful because they've just scrimped and gone for a very low quality resistor there. So I'm going to take all that off. I don't need any of that. I'm going to take this out and then mount the whole thing on here with that in front and my nice dial with the barometric pressure readings on. I've also, during the meanwhile, made the two little LEDs, unsoldered them from one of those LED strips. A couple of people have said, why don't you just buy some of these little miniature LEDs? One is, when I look them up online, there are dozens of different, hundreds of different types. So that's the first thing, and these just fit into other machines that I've done. Secondly, I've got a load of them, and thirdly, it's nice to not throw them away but to be able to find a use for them. I've also cut out this little bit of Vera board to make the circuit on. There's the circuit. Actually, that's the circuit board, and here's the circuit. It's the output from the Arduino. It goes through a 1K resistor, 1000 ohm resistor, and slowly, it basically slows it down, so it takes longer for the capacitor to fill up each time the pulse width modulated output switches on. And then the voltage here that's then steadied then goes through a further 3K3 resistor to drive the meter, just to lower it to the right amount. You could have a potentiometer or a variable resistor or whatever there, so you could even have more adjustment, but I found with these gauges that this has always given the right sort of scale for the pulse width modulated output at 5 volts. So to start assembling it, I've unscrewed the last 2 screws to get the actual movement out. There's the magnet in the middle, and you can see the very fine coil around the outside, and at each end there's a very fine pivot and a little coil spring, copper coil spring, to take the electrotrickery through to the coil. That's nice, very careful with that. I've pulled out this, which is the, I don't know, I can't think of any terminology today, the magnetic concentrator that keeps or directs the magnetic field around whatever. So I pulled that out. That's not even glued in, it's just pushed in. I don't need this. Now if you had room, you could just keep all that, but I'm going to replace that with that. And my first job is to glue that into there, and I have cut out the wrong one. Oh, it's typical, isn't it? This happens to me so many times, so often rather. I've been using these gauges, the same model, for years since I started making these things, and for ages they had a particular arrangement at the back with a bit of white plastic to support things, and then suddenly the last time I ordered 2 of them they changed the design, so I had to change my design, and invariably this is the old version. That's right, because they had a separate white plastic moulding that would support that and all that, so you could just unscrew that and then fix it into your new whatever. And then they obviously cut costs and moulded the whole thing out of one injection moulding. So now I'm going to go and have to cut that one out now. Add some more notes to the CAD drawing. That's the moral of the story. This is what I mean. Here's the overall one. And look, there's my design for the gauge. And I didn't notice down here, there's the design for the new gauge. Old gauge with white plastic support, that version. New gauge to glue in metal ring, that version. Another potential, well, it's not a potential, it's a real issue this time, solved hopefully. So I've glued that engraving just inside the front, because obviously you need something to hide the lights, the LEDs. That just glues inside there. I've assembled all this and thankfully noticed my notes on what screws to use. Number 4 1/2" brass ones to fix it all together. And then what should happen is I can line up these 2, and there we are, they push through one either side and they'll illuminate the dial, and then I can gain access to the connections on the back. So that's nice. Right, let's get all that fixed together. It does look lovely, doesn't it? And it's so nice that you can still get these analog or moving coil gauges, just no digitalness about them. They do look lovely the way the needles move. Whilst all the glue is drying on those little bits and pieces, because like I've said before, and you may well have noticed, super glue has a tendency, if it's in an enclosed space, the fumes that it releases love latent fingerprints and turn white, and it's very difficult to get it off. So I'm leaving all this glue to set the super glue, and while that's happening I'm going to start building this centre bearing support for the carousel. Now here's the base, reflections everywhere. There's the base of the carousel, and it's got these 3 strange holes in. What are they for? Well, here's the other bit that I cut out with the same 3 holes. It's for the chuck jaws, for the lathe, so I can centre it up. It is so difficult with something as large as the carousel to ensure that it's completely centred, because obviously it's got a gear on it, so you don't want it wandering. So I'm first of all going to drill out that to 13mm for a bearing, because that's going to be the bottom bearing. Let's do that thing now. Hang on a minute, safety goggles. Safety goggles on, single-handedly, health and safety, nothing's in the way. Right. Ow! Oh, what an idiot. That's how not to stop a lathe. Right, where's the... stupid, because they were sticking it. Oh, what an idiot. Yeah, here we go. Right, super glue at the ready, hang on. The times I've done that, I get so used to slowing it down with small things in. It's stupid, I tells ya. Really stupid. I decided against super glue this time because it's quite unpleasant. I thought I'd just hide it behind a plaster, so fingers crossed. Well, I can't actually cross them at the moment. Eventually I'll be able to cross my fingers again. Right, let's get the next one drilled. Now I'm going to drill the top bearing guide and the other little bits that go between these pieces. They've just got clearance holes and they don't even have to be properly centred. As long as there's a gap for the centre spindle to go up through, it doesn't matter. It's just the top one and the bottom one that are really needing to be lined up. This time it's much smaller, so it will fit in the inside the chuck jaws. So to get that centred perfectly on that, I've got it on the chuck jaws, and I'm just going to, it does push on, but it's a two-handed job I think really, and I can't even bother to set up the tripod. And also, as you've seen before, there is not a lot of room here to put a tripod. It's rather a restricted space, so I'll get that glued on. Oh, alright then, if you insist. Might as well watch me screw this up as well. Get all the dust off and everything. Here we are. Right, let's put some super glue on. Now, come on, you did it just now. There we are, that's not bad. And then, because of capillary action, nothing happens. So that is pretty close then. What that off. This is at the back, by the way, so it's complete shambles. Won't be seen. Oh dear. My finger's throbbing. But if I spin it, yeah, that is perfectly centred. Lovely. Dog walked, absolutely soaked. Lovely. Now to glue on the top bearing. Well, the best way to do it, I found, is with a jig. This lovely jig here. Nice piece of beech, again, keep talking about beech. Nice and flat, perfectly perpendicular, with a spacer on it. Now luckily, the bearings I'm going to finally use for this are these ones with a 6mm diameter hole in the middle to take a brass machine shaft. But these, I've also got these 4mm bearings, so that's great because it means I can put that onto there, and I now know that is perfectly centred and beautiful. I can push another 4mm bearing with the inside ID or whatever on there, and then I can glue that on, and I know that will then be perfect. And you can see what I mean about, you know, spacing the two bearings really far apart. Oh, that's lovely. Right, I'll get this glued on. It's glued on and it spins. I do love spinny things. Now there's about 0.5 millimetre of up and down wobble on it, but that'll be okay. I can never help that. I think it might be a little bit of distortion in the acrylic sheet. Now the next thing I need to do, we've got 5 of these supports that support the vignettes, not vinaigrette, vignettes, scenes inside the carousel, and they need to have an M3 hole drilled and tapped down that little spindly bit to fit the top of the carousel on. Now I've done that one. How am I going to do the others? I realised very early on that it's so fragile, they're so thin, little plastic. This is 5mm thick, so 3mm, that's 1mm either side. So I found that by clamping it in a machine vise and clamping a piece of wood over it really tightly, I can drill a 2.5mm hole and then tap it with my delightful handheld electric drill. I've also made a little mark, the laser cut mark, so I know where the centre is. So we've now got the hole drilled, hopefully in the right place, as I can't get to my head where the camera is. Let's go and tap it. As always, I'm going to be using isopropyl alcohol to cool it, because the plastic can otherwise get very hot. I'm going to clear the flutes, because it's so fine, and the plastic will melt if you're not careful. One of those less haste, more speed, or vice versa, or whatever it is. If you rush it, it'll just go wrong. You'll end up having to cut out another whole piece on the laser cutter. Fantastic. Well, you can see the thread nicely cuts there. Great. Just before I glue the verticals on, I remembered about the magnets. There's 5 magnets spaced around the centre of each scene, with one of them slightly nearer the middle, so that the Arduino, using 2 reed switches, can know exactly where this is. The first one I built, the prototype, I had 1 magnet, thinking, oh, I'll be ever so clever and count how many and all. You can't beat actually having a separate magnet to locate each scene. Right, they're done, glued in. So I can stick the verticals on. They're going to go like that. Beautiful, I told you. Beautiful. Look at that. Fantastic. I'm so pleased. I used the wonderful little V-blocks to glue these upright. I've just pushed the top on though, just to make sure all the holes line up and to make sure that as the glue sets, it is actually lined up, so to speak. That's great. I'm going to let the glue dry. I'm going to stand here and keep spinning it, because as you know, I like spinny things with bearings. Oh, it's just amazing. And then once the glue's dried, I'm going to paint it. And then, while the paint is drying, I'm going to cut out, oh yeah, that's right, I've got the plan stand. Look, here's my sheet with the 5 different scenes. I've got to print them out, that's right, on acetate, cut out the card bits, and then fold them all into this base. That's a nice little job. I'm looking forward to doing that. There's something so magical about these little scenes, the fact they're made from 3 layers. It's really nice. As it turns round, you can see the different layers moving separately, which is nice. Right, ready to paint. Oh, little interesting side note. Remember I was saying about the super glue, the fumes, if you get your fingerprints near it, that's what I'm talking about. I didn't even touch around the edge of that hot slot very much at all, and I didn't after I dripped a bit of super glue on, but you can see the effect it has, and it's really difficult to get off. Very, very stubborn. 2 ways, top tips, if you want to avoid that. One is by using something like these cotton gloves when handling things like lenses and stuff like that, where you really don't want to have any on. That's useful. Or the second thing, if you get a fan and you blow air, have air moving past, the fumes can't collect, and therefore that you don't get the white stuff. Thank you. Right, I will hoover this and try and check for any specks of dust, and then get a coat of paint on. Right, first job, whilst paint is a-drying, is to to print the transparencies. Now, I drew them out on my CAD software, drew out the shapes and then hatched them. Very, very fine hatching, because I wanted it to look like a sort of engraving. That's going to be at the back. And the way you do it, dear friends, is zoink, like this. Look at the beauty of that against the bleeding reflections. They've come out beautifully. The trick is, I don't even know where you can get this anymore. This for the bless them, overhead projectors, overhead film. This is from Germany. You used to be able to get it really commonly. It's coated with something, which means that you can print on it with a bubble jet printer. And I spent a long time experimenting with the settings that I couldn't see because of the reflection, and found in the end, forget all the complicated settings, set it to plain paper, standard vivid, grayscale, and stick onto an A4 sheet of paper, because the modern bubble jets, I've just got water all over. The modern bubble jets don't accept film, they can't handle it for some reason, but if you stick it onto a piece of A4 paper with a bit of sellotape at top and bottom, it goes through beautifully. So that's a good start. So we have full sun with a little bit of cloud, changeable, rainy and stormy. So there are the 5 standard barometer scenes. So I've got the gauge together, I've got the LEDs connected up, 220 ohm resistors and the circuit, and I've used a header this time that I'm going to use so I can plug and unplug this when I'm taking the front on and off. And there it is, in all its glory. Lovely. Then, having done that, of course, I realised, whilst, thankfully, I was sanding off a load of little specks, just in one of the quadrant, no, it's quad is 4, isn't it? Pentagon, I don't know. One of these sections, there are lots of little specks of dust, bumps or something. Nothing the rest of it, just in one. Isn't that odd? So I was sanding that down, and then of course realised I hadn't put on these bits that hold the balsa wood sides in place. And what a joy. So I've scraped the paint off so I can glue them on properly, and I'll do that and then repaint it. It's the next day and it's dry. I've sanded off the little speckledy bits, resprayed it twice. That looks beautiful. This was looking beautiful until I picked up to move it off and noticed a microscopic scratch. Probably just the depth of the paint, no more than that. But I don't know why I even thought, oh no, that's good enough. I'll put it to one side, don't worry about it. I don't know why I ever bothered to do that, because then all I can think about is that one scratch. Waste of time. So, yeah, sand it back with 1000 gauge grit thing and respray that. But that's nice now. And this morning I've cut out these beautiful, I just love the laser cutter. It's such an amazing piece of equipment. 10mm thick acrylic 1 minute. Look how precise that's cut. The design, it's amazing. So there's very dry. A nice cup of tea in the park, Victorian couple. Nice trees. And then fair, they've got their hats on, that's right, dressed a little bit more warmly. Change, put an umbrella up, another umbrella there. Little table things. Rain, umbrellas up, and then stormy, everything blowing all over the place and the trees being completely shredded. So we're ready now to get it all assembled here. Another day, another shirt, and some more progress. I'm just cutting out the balsa wood sides of the weather scene carousel. And here they are. I have to say, it's one of the most delightful design ideas I've ever come up with, because they're lovely. You have, well, I'll show you that in a minute. I've got the scenes done on the side, inside it. But each of these 5 panels is one of those, and then a window, and then the equivalent clear plastic disc that goes inside. It's a joy to assemble because this is slightly rebated, so once you've glued that onto the outside, it's easy to glue the window in, and it looks lovely. It really does. Because I remember when I was designing it, I was thinking, well, could have it all brass, but no, it needed something to break it up. It looks really nice with this stained balsa wood. Right, let's get to those out, and the front's glued on. There's very dry, with the lovely backgrounds and everything. Hopefully the camera can pick it up. Then there's fair, change, standing up with their umbrellas, got the umbrellas up, rain, and storm. Isn't that lovely? Something most exciting. And as I say, I love the way as it turns, which it obviously regularly does. So you can see the characters, the different layers turning past. So that's nice. We've got that done. And now I have to tidy the extension again, workshop, because we've got another party. Only a little small party this time, because it's to celebrate my 60th birthday party. I can't believe it. I can't believe I've made it this far. And I can't believe it's gone so quickly. That's nuts. Oh, anyway, because I don't like being hate being the centre of attention, despite Whitby and all that. I've got a family friend who's 50, just 50, so she's coming over to share the burden because she likes to be the centre of attention. So that's fine, but as I say, I need to tidy the extension again. I think that's probably a very good place to stop this video. Hope to see you next time. I hope you found it interesting. Please click, subscribe and like, and see you next time. 60 years old. Crazy.